Welcome back, everyone, to another week of Blind Boys Politics. I am Nicholas Rod,
And I'm Chris Baker.
and we are here with another round of failed elections. And this week, for you, we have Joe Walsh.
Nick, who
Yes,
is Joe Walsh exactly?
well, Joe Walsh is 58. He dropped out February 7th, 2020. He was a Republican nominee. He was the conservative radio show host and former Tea Party congressman from Illinois who was running a presidential campaign challenging President Trump's fitness for office. In a CNN interview, he was quoted as saying, "I got into this because I thought it was really important that there was a Republican out there every day calling out this president for how unfit he is." Now, he wasn't very popular. His poll numbers were under 1.1%. And then he followed that up by going onto Twitter and saying things such as, "My Republican Party is not a party. It is a cult." Now, Walsh had 6 major policies. So Chris will start us off with number 1.
Nick, before we get into his pillars, can I say that he sounds just like Trump, tweets random things?
Oof.
Now
That's
getting
rough.
now getting into his first pillar, we'll talk about his health care plan. When Joe Walsh was a congressman, he voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, but later spoke out against the Republican efforts to repeal the plan in 2017 in absence of a GOP alternative. As President, Walsh would repeal Obamacare, get rid of a program he says that the country can simply not afford. As a broader movement to reconceptualize health care coverage in America, he believes that the government should not pay for people's health insurance. That should be in responsibility of the American people.
Moving right along, we get into immigration. Walsh believes in building a wall at the border, but told Woodruff he would not separate families. He said President Donald Trump's move have made a humanitarian crisis worse. People coming to claim asylum that has nothing to do with the wall. Walsh also said that the United States has to devote resources to deal with asylum cases more urgently. Now, for me, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about a wall being built at the border, especially with how much it would cost. But one thing I do like here is that he doesn't want to separate families. He doesn't go into much detail about what he wants to do as far as undocumented immigrants that are already in the country, but it's still an idea, and it's not horrible.
Right, it's a better plan than what was presented before, but it still has room for improvements, I think, on how it would be paid for. Moving on to the third pillar is economy and trade. Walsh has been outspoken in rejecting Trump's trade war with China, quoting, "I believe in free trade. Everybody loses in a trade war." Walsh told Joe on the morning show. Walsh also wrote in his op-ed to the New York Times, quoting, "Mr. Trump's tariffs are a tax increase on middle-class Americans and are devastating to our farmers. That's not a smart electoral strategy."
Any comments on that?
He does bring up a valid point that it's not a strong point to have tariffs because it is going to lose voters. It's not going to have trust for the middle class if there's tariffs on all these goods. Moving on to the next pillar.
Yep, so moving right along here, we go into climate change. Walsh told Woodruff that he does believe humans have played a role in climate change and that the Republican Party needs to acknowledge that a warming planet is a problem. That position is at odds with an earlier moment in his career when Walsh worked for the Libertarian Heartland Institute, which works to undermine the scientific consensus on climate change. He has also tweeted his own skepticism of climate change in the past. Now, this isn't the first, we've already seen as we've been reading through these that he's a little bit of a hypocrite on certain things. And here's another example of it, just going back on things you've said in the past and things that you've taken part of in the past. And obviously, views can change over time if you're introduced to a new way of thinking, but it's also just interesting to see how much he's going back and forth on some of these topics, and it just seems like, he just wants to kick Trump out of office, so he's taking opposite viewpoints.
Absolutely. And the next one is his social standpoint. He's changed his mind on this one, and that would be social issues. He has flipped a few times on his opinion of gay rights. During his unsuccessful 1996 campaign for a House seat in liberal Illinois district, Walsh said that he would support the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, quoting, "If there's a more gay-friendly Republican around, I'd like to meet them." He told the Windy City Times that year, fast forward to his remarks as a Tea Party figure when Walsh voted against the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, and said that children of husband and wife households perform better socially and academically. Now Walsh told Woodruff that he accepts same-sex marriage as the law of the land, but also believes that anybody who can qualify to serve in the military, gay, straight, or transgender, should be able to serve. On reproductive health issues, Walsh opposes abortion without expectation. So he has swapped sides on the gay, LGBT laws and what his feelings are on that, which, like Nick said, that's fine as your viewpoints change, but he's flip-flopped so many times. And also on his abortion without expectation. I feel like that's a very controversial subject, and that might have been a reason why he lost votes, but also as a leader, you have to say what you think and what you would do to get your presidential votes, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, and it's just as you said, abortion without expectation, him opposing that is pretty intense if you really think about it, because that covers all sorts of pregnancies and all of that, and it includes pregnancies that are completely dangerous for the mother. Say if a young child, something happens and they get pregnant, without trying to, their life could be in danger, and he is opposed to aborting that child no matter what. So it's pretty intense and a little crazy to think about. But moving right along here, we get into foreign policy, and this is the last point we have. Walsh believes in setting preconditions for negotiations with foreign leaders, including North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, Iranian leadership, and the Palestinians. The United States should not be some objective mediator between Israel and the Palestinians, Walsh said. The United States is in Israel's corner. We're not in the Palestinian corner at all. Walsh also believes that the U.S. soldiers need to come home from Afghanistan, and slammed Trump's now canceled plan to bring Taliban leaders to Camp David. I have no problem with negotiating some sort of deal to make sure that Americans come home, but you do not ever allow anybody in the Taliban on American soil, he said. And that was his foreign policy in a nutshell. And, well, to be perfectly honest, especially with the Taliban situation, I agree. That is insane to think that Trump wanted to bring Taliban leaders onto our soil in an effort to bring soldiers home. I myself am all for bringing soldiers home if possible, but that's not a way to do it, in my opinion.
It needs to be done in a safe manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe Joe Walsh didn't do so good in the pollings because people saw that he was so flippy-floppy with his opinions, and some people might believe that his opinions changed because that is not what the popularity believed anymore. The popularity opinions have changed, and he figured I better change mine so I might get further. But based on his past, and he's made his opinions present in the past, that is on record. People see that, and that's simply why he probably did not do so well. Besides, his policies weren't always the greatest ones.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, if you flip flop too many times, you're eventually gonna get, looks of doubt and definitely lack of faith from the people. And that was definitely shown with with a polling of under 1.1%. Obviously people did not see this man as any sort of true leader, didn't have any faith in him at all. And I can totally understand why.
That is the end of why Joe Walsh's election failed. I hope you guys are enjoying this series.
Yep, I know I'm definitely enjoying doing the research and getting to see all the different ideas from these people and where they went wrong. But yep, that's it for this week. You can find us on Twitter. Myself at blinding_aura. That is at blinding_aura. Chris, you can find him at C_BAKER002. And the podcast, you can find that account on both Twitter and Instagram at blindboypolitic.
See y'all next week.
See you guys.